I want to talk with you about something difficult and important because I keep seeing it crop up in sessions. If you're autistic and you've been following the news lately, particularly around the Epstein files, you may be feeling overwhelmed, angry, or unable to stop thinking about it, even though it's hurting you. I want to say this clearly. There's nothing wrong with you if you're feeling this way. Many autistic adults have a strong sense of justice, and when serious injustice comes into view, it can feel unbearable. But caring deeply doesn't mean you have to consume everything, witness every detail, or sacrifice your mental health to prove that you care. And that's what we're going to talk about together today. Hello, and welcome or welcome back to Unwinding Minds. If you're new here, hi. I'm Rosie, and it's nice to meet you. I'm a chronically ill counsellor based in the UK, and I specialise in supporting disabled, neurodiverse and chronically ill people with managing their mental health. And I also make these videos as a supplement to offering private counselling services. And that's to support everyone, including those who cannot access counselling with a professional like myself right now. It is important to state, however, that any videos I put on this channel are not a substitute for counselling, okay? They're only intended to support you with your psychoeducation. So before we dive into this video, I want to be very clear that the message of this video might not feel right for everyone. The goal of today is to offer up options about how we engage with distressing news, so that those who are really struggling to cope remember that they have options in terms of how they can engage with the news. I do not condone the actions of those responsible for the news that we're seeing about Jeffrey Epstein and his co-conspirators, which probably goes without saying, but I'm saying it anyway, so that there's no room for doubt. We're talking about really sensitive and painful topics today, and I've tried my best to ensure that this video contains as little distressing content as possible, but it may still be difficult for some viewers. So, viewer discretion is advised. I want to start by talking about why this hits autistic people so hard. Why is this kind of news especially difficult if you're autistic? And why it's very obviously upsetting for the majority of people, but why it might be harder for some than for others. Evidence gathered in research indicates that autistic individuals, particularly autistic women, though not exclusively, often show heightened emotional and physiological responses to perceived injustice. This combination of moral sensitivity and nervous system reactivity can make repeated exposure to disturbing news particularly overwhelming. There are a few things that compound this issue much further. Firstly, autistic nervous systems tend to stay in a heightened state for longer. Once something feels threatening, unjust, or morally alarming, your body can remain on high alert long after the screen's turned off. Secondly, autistic adults are more likely to have suffered from childhood sexual abuse than the general population. In fact, according to Thrundle et al. And Gibbs et al., autistic youths are 3 to 4 times more likely than non-autistic youths to experience sexual victimization, and between 40 and 50% of autistic adults report experiences of sexual abuse during childhood. That's a huge disparity, and it likely means that the news coming out could run the risk of re-traumatizing victims of sexual abuse in childhood. Frankly, the actual numbers are probably considerably higher than what is reported. Thirdly, many autistic adults process information deeply and quite literally. The details don't just pass through and may be processed differently than in a neurotypical brain. In autistic people, the information can lodge quite deeply. Images, names, timelines, implications, they can really stick. Fourthly, there's often a very strong internal rule around fairness that might go something like this. If something's wrong, it must be addressed. If harm occurred, it must be acknowledged. And if I turn away, am I complicit? That can create a painful situation which can be confusing to navigate. Watching the news can harm mental health, but not watching feels morally wrong. If you recognize yourself in any of that, I want you to know that it makes sense that you are struggling with this dilemma. This is your integrity and goodwill meeting a world that is unfortunately often cruel and chaotic. I know that on social media there's often a strong message about ensuring that you keep informed, but what I want to explore today is what it is to maintain protectiveness around your mental health and mental state whilst engaging with news in a way that suits you best. There's an important distinction we don't talk about enough: being informed versus being flooded with the news. For some people, it may be possible to engage with the news quite regularly without becoming flooded, but for others, complete disengagement may in fact be necessary to ensure that you keep yourself safe and well. This is often about the degree to which we engage with the news, but also to do with your mental health and your background. So let me distinguish some of the differences for the sake of clarity between flooding versus being informed. Being informed might look like understanding the key facts, knowing what has been confirmed, or being aware of the broader issue and what actions are being taken to bring justice. It might also include being informed as to what actions you can take. Being flooded often looks quite different. It might mean repeatedly scrolling through social media for updates, doom scrolling, or going into rabbit holes for potentially hours. It might mean watching emotionally charged commentary about the findings. It may also mean reading speculation, outrage, or graphic details about the specifics, all for the sake of being informed. It also is feeling unable to stop, even as your body has responses to the information, such as an anxiety attack or lack of sleep. I want to be very clear and state that you can choose to engage to whatever degree suits you as a person, and I want to emphasize is the potential harms to some people of being flooded. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference between direct danger and witnessed injustice. It reacts as if something terrible is happening to you right now. So, if you've noticed, like I said, trouble sleeping, increased anxiety or shutdown, rumination that won't switch off, overthinking, a sense of despair or disgust with humanity, well, that's because your nervous system may have had too much stimulation. This is the part many autistic adults really struggle with, so I want to be very explicit. You are allowed to disconnect from the news. Now, hold up, not necessarily forever, not because you don't care, but because you are a human being with limits. The human brain has limitations. That's why in legal proceedings, those looking at criminal content are exposed to limited amounts for limited time periods. One of the limitations we have is on how much trauma we can sustain whilst maintaining regular functioning. This applies to everybody, but particularly neurodivergent people are vulnerable to this. Caring about an issue does not require constant exposure to the problems of the world. Awareness does not require self-harm, and constant or regular exposure to harmful things can perhaps lead you to struggle to navigate your own life, to make decisions, or to gain the energy needed in order to take action to end the harms we see in the world. This is subtle and deeply individual, and it's neither my role nor my preference to dictate to you what you ought to do in life. The reason for making this video is because I think sometimes the complexity of how much you can engage with these things gets flattened until there's either one way or another of engaging with distressing news stories. Either you read it all and you are therefore considered a good person and not complicit, or that you choose to look away and therefore you're letting people down or not doing your part, which is very one-dimensional because those viewpoints don't consider the needs of the individual nor the actions they take. I sometimes say to clients, you don't have to keep your hand in the oven to prove that it's hot. Stepping back is not synonymous with agreeing or being supportive of the people who are responsible for atrocities. It can instead be an act of self-preservation, and preserving yourself matters because you matter. So, if you want to create boundaries, practical boundaries, which are clear, structured, explicit, it may help and support you if you're struggling with managing your own mental health while trying to navigate the news. Autistic brains often do better with rules than with vague intentions, so how about we go through some options together? You don't need to do all of them. You don't need to do any of them. Just assess what you need and what you think you'll respond the best to. Time limits. Choose a specific window to read through the news or watch videos. That might be 15 or 20 minutes, once a day or a week, earlier in the day and not before bed. When the time is up, it's up, even if you feel unfinished. This can be challenging if you struggle with impulse control. If you suspect that you're going to be pulled into watching more or reading more, this one may not work well for you. Source limits. Pick 1 or 2 factual sources for news. How we digest information depends partly on its delivery. For some people, it can be really emotionally inflammatory to hear opinion-heavy commentary, speculation, or social media threads designed to provoke outrage and boost engagement. You can avoid these sources and stick to fact-based sources. This won't eliminate the emotional response to the things you read, of course, but it may help with processing the information in your own way and in your own time. No autoplay. Autoplaying videos means that you're not making an active decision about how much to consume and take in. You can turn off autoplay features. You can watch content from channels you're subscribed to rather than doom scrolling. You can make choices, and making choices is aided by slowing down. Body and mind check-ins. If your jaw's clenched, are your shoulders tight or stomach churning, those things are your cue to stop. Your body's trying to tell you that your nervous system is activated. You're entering a fight or flight mode and it is under stress. You can choose at this point or before to disengage. Have you drunk any water? Are your eyes dry from staring at the screen? Once you notice those things, you can then choose to look after yourself. Completely disengage. Give yourself some time to trial not being on social media, maybe for a week. See how your mind and body respond to this. Maybe you feel a bit differently. If you're autistic, your sense of justice can be one of your strongest qualities. I don't want to discourage you from taking action in your life, because taking actions to change things for the better is powerful. I think that the difficulty is that we can't help someone who's drowning if we ourselves are submerged in the same water. A clear mind can make choices about what actions to take. A helpful question is, what is within my control now? You might not be able to fix the system right now. You aren't able to undo the harms done to others, or ensure accountability today for those who are accountable. But you might be able to take action in other ways. You can support survivor-led organizations, vote, donate, or advocate for others. Have thoughtful conversations with those in your community. Live your values in smaller and tangible ways. Small actions do matter. They restore agency. And here's something crucial. You do not need to personally carry the weight of all injustice for your efforts to count. You aren't responsible for every bad thing happening in the world. Some of what you may be feeling isn't just distress, it's grief. It's grief for the lost innocence or broken systems. The realization that power usually tries to protect itself over the innocent. This is sometimes called moral injury, when your values collide with reality. Grief and sadness are a process. If you lost a person, you are not likely to think of them all day, in every moment for the rest of your life. Grief tends to move in waves, sometimes with intense pain and presence, and sometimes you rest from it. And with grief, rest is not avoidance, it's just part of the process. If you are allowed to step back, soothe your nervous system and return later, or not at all, either way, you're a good person. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means caring for yourself in balance with caring for others. When you're experiencing emotional overwhelm, it helps to come back to questions around self-care. What can you do to look after yourself? Can you speak to another person that you trust about how you're feeling? Would it help you to engage in therapy to process how you're feeling about what you're seeing? What daily needs might you be neglecting or struggling with right now? There's no shame in struggling. It's an opportunity to find ways to give yourself love and care. Before we finish, I'd like to offer a brief grounding moment. If it feels okay, maybe we take a breath. You can notice where you're sitting, feel the support beneath you, and you can remind yourself of this. I am here. I am safe right now. You don't have to solve everything today. You don't have to witness everything. You don't have to carry things on your own. Caring deeply and having a big heart in a broken world is hard, especially if you're autistic. Learning when to look away is not giving up. It's how we stay intact. Please take care of yourself. This hasn't been an easy video either to make or to watch, so if you've made it this far, please know that I'm very grateful to you. If this episode resonated with you, please take a second to like, subscribe, do all the YouTube stuff. You never know, sharing this message with somebody else might help them, and it might make a big difference to their day-to-day life. We make a lot of videos about chronic illness, disability, neurodivergence, and mental health on this channel. And I'm always very interested to see what people want to see more of. If you have thoughts, please put them down in the comments below. And check the description too if you are interested in working with me on a one-to-one basis for helping you to manage your mental health, as I do offer private counselling. Thank you so much for watching, and take really good care.